Okay, so this is Cowscape. Cowscape is a website that is a feature of the California Native Plant Society, and it is a website about the 9,000 native plants, in more than 9,000 native plants in California. What you can do is you put in here, it says search for California native plants by name, and say we put in Western redbud. And it shows us on the map, it shows us the yellow is all the places in all the area in California where this plant is native. And then beautiful photographs. You could go through all the photographs. Then here, a description, lovely description of many aspects about the plant, where it grows, what it's like. It's easy to grow. Then plant type, size. They slightly exaggerate the size, I think. Form, growth rate, whether it's dormant, when it's dormant, whether it has a fragrant, flower color, when it flowers, wildlife supported. Here it is, hummingbirds, birds, bees, caterpillars, and moths and butterflies. And then here they now show all the butterflies that they know of, and then how many are likely. Then here, and this is so useful for us as gardeners, sun requirements, moisture requirements, summer irrigation. A list of the nurseries you can get it at. So Western redbud, no problem. We know, it pops up everywhere and you can get it many places. But some other plants, not so much, and this is very useful. You click here and you can get a list of all the nurseries where it's carried. Ease of care, very easy. Oh, don't you love that about redbud? Cold tolerance. This is great if you have to live someplace where it's a little on the hotter, a little on the colder side of where we live, or maybe you've fallen in love with something you think is a native plant, but it turns out, it's from San Diego, or, it's from up, closer to Tahoe, and it maybe isn't going to do as well here. Soil drainage, well, this one isn't picky, but you never know. Then, okay, common uses, companion plants, sunset zones, site type. So if you look at site type and you look at companion plants, those two things together will give you a really good picture of where does this plant want to live. So if you want a plant to be happy, you look at those two and you say, aha, okay, if I want this plant to live, can I create, or do I have something that feels like chaparral or forest woodland? Am I going to be able to plant near this deer grass, elderberry, sages, California bush anemone, some ceanothus? Could I create a little landscape, or a big landscape, that had those kinds of plants in it? It would look like it belonged if it had those plants in it. Not saying you have to use those plants, but it's just an interesting set of suggestions. You don't have to start from scratch every time you have an idea about a plant you might like, about what would you do with that plant once you had it. It's really fabulous. So I really could not recommend this site more highly. Also, just to let you know, one other thing you can do with this is, let's see, I'm not signed in, but if I were signed in, let's see. Now that I'm signed in, then it says my plant lists. You can create a plant list, and I will show you that say I have Western Redbud, and I can add it to any of my plant lists. Here it says to add to my plant list. So I can add it to any of my plant lists or create another plant list. So you can build a plant list. And let me show you what these plant lists look like, and then we'll go on. But let me show you. So my plant list, say for, let's just say, oh, for the native meadow, because you've seen the native meadow. These are the plants for the native meadow. Okay, all of the plants for the native meadow. Now I can see this plant list, and I can see it in a list view. And when I see it in list view, it looks like that. And when I see it in a text view, it looks like that. And then when I can export it to a spreadsheet, detailed. And let's just, I don't know if when it exports it to a spreadsheet, I'm gonna have to, I think I'm gonna have to share that with you separately, but you may imagine it shows a huge amount of data about all of these plants. And so you can, I won't bother to do that in the middle of this, but it is totally stunning what you can do. So I'm going to go back to our PowerPoint and just urge you to explore Calscape and really start creating your very own plant list. It's phenomenal. Allison.
Thank you, Chrissy. Thanks. No, that was a wonderful demonstration of the power of technology. But some of us are people that have to see things and have to feel things. And we highly recommend this website. It's produced by the University of California at Davis, who just so happens to be our parent. They are our headquarters for the University of California Cooperative Extension, which is our parent for the Master Gardener program. So they put their money where their mouth is. There is an arboretum on site at UC Davis that highlights 100 plants that are almost guaranteed for success in California. This website is very, very robust. Again, it's 100 plants which go from ground covers to trees. You can search the database, export it into Excel. You can actually go to Davis and actually view these plants live. One of the things I really love about this website is it's got some design elements in there where you can actually download these sample plans, and it'll be a combination of plants that will look good for, let's say, wildlife or butterflies. It's a fun website to explore, and I do highly recommend that you do it. Again, you know, we don't want to overwhelm you with thousands of species of plants, but this is the go-to website for things that will do really well in California.
So we know that lots of people in this area are concerned about being as safe as possible from wildfire. So we often get questions about, well, you know, how can we plant for being fire-wise? And so we have a couple of recommendations in general on how to educate yourself about issues around being fire-wise. The first is the National Fire Protection Association, and here's their website. And they have fabulous public education on preparing your home for wildfire. I've taken one of their courses. It's really, really terrific. And they have wonderful defensible space guidelines, And what they really focus on is how to reduce the wildfire risks in the home and about the home. It's a terrific place to start because that's really the most important thing we can do is reduce those risks. So they focus on that. Then, whoop, there should have been one more. Whoop, hang on, we're going backwards. There we go. The second one that we recommend is the Nevada County Fire Safe Council, and they are at rufiresafe.com. So they have defensible space advisory visits where people come and where someone will come to your home and walk around your home with you and evaluate the readiness of your home as a defensible space and give you recommendations. They also have a chipping program, and I am not sure about the status of the chipping program in the current situation. They are the organization in this county that runs the FireWise certification for neighborhoods. If your community is a FireWise community, this is the organization through which that happens. If your community is not a FireWise community, or if you don't know and you want to find out, this is the organization to talk with. They have excellent diagrams and information on what the various defensible space zones are as you go out from your house, and what kind of landscaping you can and should do in those various zones, and recommendations on things like the spacing of trees and shrubs, the sizes of trees and shrubs. It's really, this information has evolved since the Tubbs fire and the fires in Santa Rosa was that 2017 maybe, 2016. This information has changed. So if you have not addressed the landscaping near your house, right near your house, since 2016, 2017, it would be really good to look at rufiresafe.com. They have a new website, by the way, which is really, really attractive. They also have on their website a sizable PDF on fire-resistant landscaping recommendations, which was developed in partnership with the local Redbud chapter of the California Native Plant Society. So they would be a source that we would recommend that you take a look at. So we thank you so much for coming, and this is the end of our formal presentation. The handout for this workshop and recording will be up on our Master Gardener website, which is ncmg.ucanr.org. And then you go to online workshops and videos. And that will be up this week. And then, of course, if you want more help on anything from the Master Gardeners, you go to the same website and go to Got Questions, and there will be a path for how you can submit a question. We will now, I will switch over to our moderator, who will then facilitate the question portion of our workshop. Thank you.
Thank you, Chrissy. You've done a great job. You and Allison are so knowledgeable and so helpful. And I've attended this workshop twice now, and it's just full of really good information. So I thank you both. And then I thank all of our participants for joining us for our first virtual workshop. Shelley also asks a question for you, Chrissy and Allison, about planting trees or shrubs now or in the fall, and what are the benefits of that? If you could address that, thanks.
I'll go ahead and answer that. You know, early summer, late spring is a fabulous time to plant trees or shrubs because the ground is very soft. But most importantly, the supply is great. In other words, you can get a large, there's a lot of diversity and availability at the nurseries and the garden centers. So fall is a great time to plant, but I typically plant mostly spring because I'm not focusing as much on natives. Natives to have a bigger chance for success if planted in the fall. However, if it is just an ornamental tree, a fruit tree, you know, obviously you want to get them when you can get them and plant them as soon as you see them. Christy, you have anything on that?
Yeah, I think you've pretty much covered it. I mean, fruit trees should be planted when they're dormant. So that's going to be you order them in November, because if you wait until January when you want to plant them, you won't be able to get the ones you want. So you should order them in November, and then you'll probably plant them in January. The same will go for berries. And then, as you said, you know, natives, you'll plant most of them in the fall. Occasionally, you can plant them in the relatively early spring.
Thank you, Chrissy. I have a question from Bethany, and she's asking, and it's pretty pertinent for all of us here in the foothills. What's the best way to amend our clay soil?
Well, how we can each, I suppose, speak to how each of us has handled that, because I think it is a really important question. It depends on what you want to plant. So how I amend my clay soil for my vegetable garden is different from how I amend my clay soil for fruit trees, is different from how I amend my clay soil for native plants. So that's the first thing to know, is that it depends, as master gardeners are wont to say. So for vegetable, an important thing to do is to have a soil test done, because you don't know how you might want to amend your soil until you know the state of your soil. So I would highly recommend, you know, yes, you want more, as they say, tilth in your soil. You know, you want it to be less like pottery soil and more friable, you know, looser. But you also, if you're going to plant, particularly if you're going to plant something that you care what the blooming is like, you know, which is to say, you know, anything that you want to eat or anything that you care about the blooming, you want to know what the overall balance is in the soil. So I would recommend that you find either online or in a good nursery the kind of soil test kit where you gather soil in a bag, send it away in a box, and they send you back electronically the results of a soil analysis, which is quite detailed. And then you know what you want to amend your soil with if you're just getting started. Now, I wouldn't do that for everything, but I would do it for vegetables. I would do it for fruit trees and berries. You know, if you are a rosarian and want to plant roses someplace, I might do it for that too, because then you are really caring about the quality of the bloom. So to just start with clay soil and go, I'm going to grow great roses, you might want to optimize your soil. So that's one thing. And then you would be guided by the results of the soil test. But in general, I would say the best answer is really good compost, no matter what you're doing.
And I would agree with that. You know, we would not recommend that people get a rototiller and till, you know, 500 to 1,000 square feet of land and try to work material in. It really kind of depends on what you're going to plant. I am a big believer in sheet mulching to improve your soil over time. the picture that you saw of my side yard where I was laying the cardboard down, I have to tell you that first year when I sunk those trees in, it was bad, horrible. But over time, I've always just replenished a little bit more mulch year after year. Over time, I can step on a shovel and it goes right in. And it's remarkable what the soil microbes do to pick up and gather the organic material from the mulch and from the compost that was laid down. So think in small batches. I was not able to do much with my clay soil where I wanted to do my vegetable garden. So I built raised beds. And I think a lot of people are doing that more and more. There's different ways you can build up your soil above ground and plant in hay. So there's a lot of options. Don't try, this isn't, you know, if you're going to put a lawn down, then there's kind of a lot of work. But if you're doing individual plantings, it's not so much so. Thank you for the question.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Allison. I do have one more question from Jean, and she's asking, you did mention about fir bark, and she's asking, are you saying pine bark is not good?
I don't know much about pine bark. I think I said fir bark because it's the kind of bark that I've been able to buy at a landscape supply place, not because I have anything negative to say about pine bark. I'm assuming that pine bark probably is a little bit more acidic, but I don't know.
Yeah, I would say any kind of mulch that you use is, it's really a personal preference on color and shape and size. I mean, many people go out to our big package stores and buy the bark that has colors in it, black and red, and I've seen brown as well. So it really is a personal preference. I typically use fir bark in my ornamental areas because it looks good and it's very uniform in color, and when it breaks down, it does a good job of replenishing the soil. So it's kind of, but I have no aversion to using, chipped materials from the tree trimmers either, but I won't use them in the areas closest to the house because, I want a certain look and I'm willing to pay the price.
We have another question that came in from Mitzi, and she's asking if you can say something about controlling invasive vines such as trumpet and ivy.
I think the short answer is just keep at it. I would recommend, one second, I'm going to look up the IPM the University of California Cooperative Extension, or UC Davis, has a website called IPM, and I don't know if they have anything on, or there's also the Invasive Plant Council. I think the best thing is if you're trying to control it with mulch, put down, and you're having trouble, put down an extra layer of cardboard and put down more mulch. One thing I've discovered about mulch, I discovered this early on, is they said 4 inches of mulch. 3 inches of mulch is not the same as 4 inches of mulch. At 3 inches of mulch, you got a lot more weeds coming back than you do at 4 inches of mulch. So my one piece of advice would be is to definitely use at least 4 inches of mulch, and to definitely overlap that cardboard by at least 6 inches. And if you have a problem with a very invasive species like the trumpet vine or the ivy, that you've done the best you can, and now it's, still coming back, I would use very overlapping cardboard. I would use really big sheets of cardboard so you don't have, little spaces for the vines to come through. And I would use more inches of mulch. What do you think, Allison?
Yeah, obviously ivy and trumpet vines are invasive species and very difficult to control. This is probably where I would hire out and get some laborers to help. Just remove as much as you possibly can before you do anything. I don't I'm not going to say that I've never used chemical means, but it depends on your tolerance for pain, I think. So you have to do what you have to do sometimes, but definitely the thicker the mulch, the harder it is to come back. I know in the Bay Area, for example, we are blighted with oxalis, and the taller the mulch, the much easier it is to get rid of it when it does reappear. It's very, very easy to pull it out. I would definitely check out the IPM website to see if there is a article on ivy. And specifically, I haven't really looked at it myself, but it's a great resource.
Now, of course, those comments would apply to any persistent weed that you might have in the area. It also applies, by the way, to Bermuda grass. If you happen to have a lawn that has Bermuda grass and you're removing that lawn. I got that very advice from master gardeners myself when I was removing a lawn and discovered that that lawn had Bermuda grass in it. And I was really disappointed because that's where we were putting in that native meadow, and was like, wait, I can't put the native meadow in now, because I called master gardeners and said, what should I do about the Bermuda grass? And they said, sheet mulch for a year. And I was so disappointed. I had to put off my native meadow project for an entire year and just sheet mulch, not even try to grow the meadow, because the point was, if I put in the meadow, I was going to have to water. And if I just sheet mulch, I wouldn't put any water at all on that area for an entire year. So that's what I did. And I had a friend who knew how disappointed I was. And she said, what about if we took just this little teeny corner and put in like 8 or 9 of the plants of the grasses that you're going to grow, just like a little demo area for yourself. So you didn't feel that you'd grown nothing. And then the whole rest of it was the meadow, the whole rest of it was just sheet mulched. And it really helped. So that's another piece of advice, is if you have a really persistent weed in an area, is just sheet mulch for longer before you start your landscaping project. So you put no water on that area at all once you've done the sheet mulching. And I have lived the disappointment that means. It doesn't mean that all the Bermuda grass was gone from there. We do occasionally have to go through there and weed a little bit of it out, but it's not awful. It's not even terrible. It's just a minor weed annoyance. And given how terrible Bermuda grass can be, it was worth the wait.